FCLE Court Cases Last Minute Review. Question 1. What did the War Powers Resolution of 1973 require the President to do regarding the deployment of American military forces? Option A. Obtain the approval of the United States Supreme Court before mobilizing troops. Option B. Notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying troops and withdraw them within 60 to 90 days unless Congress authorizes force. Option C. Relinquish control of the military to the Joint Chiefs of Staff during undeclared conflicts. Option D. Secure a unanimous vote of consent from the state governors prior to an invasion. The correct answer is option B. Notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying troops and withdraw them within 60 to 90 days unless Congress authorizes force. The War Powers Resolution requires the President to notify Congress after deploying forces and limits continued deployment without congressional authorization. It does not require Supreme Court approval or consent from state governors. The statute reflects congressional efforts to check unilateral warmaking. Question 2. What does a writ of certiorari issued by the United States Supreme Court signify? Option A. A direct order releasing a prisoner from an illegal confinement. Option B. An official announcement that the court will review a case from a lower court. Option C. A declaration that a federal law has been completely overturned without oral arguments. Option D. A formal reprimand of an executive branch official by the Chief Justice. The correct answer is option B. An official announcement that the court will review a case from a lower court. A writ of certiorari means the Supreme Court has agreed to review a lower court case. Habeas corpus challenges detention, and certiorari is not itself a merits decision overturning a law. Certiorari is about granting review, not deciding the case. Question 3. Which of the following is an example of a reserved power held exclusively by state governments under the U.S. Constitution? Option A. Declaring war against a foreign adversary. Option B. Regulating interstate commerce and establishing local governments. Option C. Entering into an international free trade pact. Option D. Creating federal standard weights and measures. The correct answer is option B. Regulating interstate commerce and establishing local governments. Regulating interstate commerce and establishing local governments are reserved powers generally held by states. Declaring war, treaty-making, and federal standards for money or measurements belong to the national government. Reserved powers flow from the 10th Amendment. Question 4. Which landmark legislation passed in 1993 required local law enforcement to conduct background checks on individuals purchasing handguns? Option A. The Gun-Free School Zones Act. Option B. The Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act. Option C. The National Firearms Act. Option D. The Violent Crime Control Act. The correct answer is option B. The Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act. The Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act required background checks for handgun purchases through local law enforcement procedures and later federal systems. It is not a school safety, labor, or environmental law. Handgun background checks point to Brady. Question 5. What fundamental principle ensures that the military remains subordinate to the civilian government in the United States? Option A. The Joint Chiefs of Staff are elected directly by the public. Option B. The President, a civilian official, serves as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Option C. Congress cannot authorize defense spending for more than 6 months at a time. Option D. Individual states command their own independent nuclear arsenals. The correct answer is option B. The President, a civilian official, serves as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Civilian control of the military is preserved because the President, an elected civilian officer, is Commander-in-Chief. The military is not elected directly, and states do not control independent nuclear arsenals. The principle prevents armed forces from becoming a separate political authority. Question 6. What is the fundamental basis for civil liberties in the United States political system? Option A. They are granted to citizens as rewards for outstanding public service. Option B. They are natural rights protected against government overreach by constitutional amendments. Option C. They are conditional privileges that expire during every federal election cycle. Option D. They are dictated entirely by the individual preferences of local police forces. The correct answer is option B. They are natural rights protected against government overreach by constitutional amendments. Civil liberties are rights protected against government overreach, many of them rooted in natural rights theory and secured by constitutional amendments. They are not rewards, temporary election cycle privileges, or police preferences. The Bill of Rights is the main study anchor for civil liberties. Question 7. What core value ensures that all eligible citizens have an equal opportunity to cast a vote in public elections? Option A. Economic equity. Option B. Political equality. Option C. Freedom of association. Option D. Judicial independence. The correct answer is option B. Political equality. Political equality means eligible citizens have an equal opportunity to participate in elections, especially by voting. Economic equity concerns resources, association concerns joining groups, and judicial independence concerns courts. Voting rights questions usually point to political equality. Question 8. How does the United States Constitution limit the power of the federal government to suspend the writ of habeas corpus? Option A. It can never be suspended under any circumstances whatsoever. Option B. It can only be suspended during times of rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it. Option C. It can be suspended at any time by a unilateral executive order from the President. Option D. It can be suspended only if the Supreme Court issues an official judicial advisory opinion. The correct answer is option B. It can only be suspended during times of rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it. The Constitution allows suspension of habeas corpus only during rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it. It is not absolutely unsuspendable, nor may the President suspend it at will. Habeas corpus protects against unlawful detention by requiring legal justification for custody. Question 9. What constitutional power allows the President to reject an individual section of an appropriations bill while signing the remainder into law? Option A. Pocket veto. Option B. Line item veto, note, held unconstitutional at the federal level. Option C. Executive decree. Option D. Categorical refusal. The correct answer is option B. Line item veto, note, held unconstitutional at the federal level. A line item veto is the power to reject specific parts of a spending bill while approving the rest. At the federal level, the Supreme Court held this device unconstitutional, so presidents normally must sign or veto an entire bill. A pocket veto is different because it involves inaction when Congress adjourns. Question 10. What is the minimum age required by the Constitution to serve as a member of the United States Senate? Option A. 25 years old. Option B. 30 years old. Option C. 35 years old. Option D. 40 years old. The correct answer is option B. 30 years old. A senator must be at least 30 years old. House members must be 25, and presidents must be 35. The Senate's higher age requirement reflects its longer term and broader role. Question 11. What type of brief can be filed by an outside individual or interest group that is not a direct party to a lawsuit but wishes to provide legal arguments to the Supreme Court? Option A. Writ of habeas corpus. Option B. Amicus curiae brief. Option C. Executive position paper. Option D. Declaratory injunction. The correct answer is option B. Amicus curiae brief. An amicus curiae brief is filed by a non-party who offers legal arguments or expertise to a court. Habeas corpus challenges detention, and injunctions are court orders. The phrase means friend of the court. Question 12. What political philosophy emphasizes that the law must apply equally to those who hold high public office and those who do not? Option A. Rule of law. Option B. Aristocracy. Option C. Meritocracy. Option D. Divine right. The correct answer is option A. Rule of law. Rule of law requires legal standards to apply to public officials and ordinary citizens alike. Aristocracy and divine right place some people above others, while meritocracy concerns advancement by ability. Equal legal accountability is the central idea. Question 13. Which Supreme Court case established the judicial doctrine of separate but equal, legally justifying state-mandated racial segregation in public facilities? Option A. Dred Scott v. Sandford, 1857. Option B. Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. Option C. Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Option D. Korematsu v. United States, 1944. The correct answer is option B. Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. Plessy v. Ferguson created the separate but equal doctrine, permitting racial segregation if facilities were claimed to be equal. Dred Scott dealt with slavery and citizenship, while Brown later rejected Plessy. Segregated public facilities point to Plessy. Question 14. Which clause prevents a state from discriminating against citizens of other states by denying them basic legal rights and access to courts? Option A. The Privileges and Immunities Clause. Option B. The Free Exercise Clause. Option C. The Advice and Consent Clause. Option D. The Executive Prerogative Clause. The correct answer is option A. The Privileges and Immunities Clause. The Privileges and Immunities Clause prevents states from denying basic civil rights to citizens of other states. Free exercise concerns religion, advice and consent concerns Senate approval, and executive prerogative is not the interstate rights rule. The clause supports national unity among state citizens. Question 15. Which amendment contains the citizenship clause that grants birthright citizenship to anyone born or naturalized in the United States? Option A, 12th Amendment. Option B, 13th Amendment. Option C, 14th Amendment. Option D, 15th Amendment. The correct answer is option C, 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment contains the Citizenship Clause, granting citizenship to people born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction. The 13th abolished slavery, and the 15th protected voting regardless of race. Birthright citizenship points to the 14th. Question 16. Which piece of landmark legislation created the federal framework for safe working conditions, establishing a national enforcement agency for workplace health? Option A, the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. Option B, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, OSHA, of 1970. Option C, the National Labor Relations Act of 1935. Option D, the Social Security Act of 1935. The correct answer is option B, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, OSHA, of 1970. OSHA created the federal framework for workplace safety and health standards. Civil rights, environmental, or education laws do not establish the main workplace safety agency. Safe working conditions point to the Occupational Safety and Health Act. Question 17. Which landmark executive action issued by President Abraham Lincoln in 1863 declared that all enslaved persons within rebellious Confederate states were free? Option A, the Gettysburg Address. Option B, the Emancipation Proclamation. Option C, the Reconstruction Act. Option D, the 10% Plan. The correct answer is option B, the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation declared enslaved people in rebelling Confederate areas free as a wartime executive action. The Gettysburg Address was a speech, and Reconstruction plans addressed post-war restoration. Lincoln's 1863 Freedom Order is the Emancipation Proclamation. Question 18. Which executive department is tasked with conducting international relations, managing embassies, and advancing American foreign policy interests? Option A, Department of Homeland Security. Option B, Department of Defense. Option C, Department of State. Option D, Department of Commerce. The correct answer is option C, Department of State. The Department of State conducts diplomacy, manages embassies, and advances foreign policy. Defense handles the military, Homeland Security, domestic security, and commerce, business and trade programs. Embassies and diplomacy point to state. Question 19. What is the purpose of a conference committee in the United States Congress? Option A, to conduct public oversight hearings regarding executive department spending. Option B, to resolve differences between different versions of a bill passed by the House and the Senate. Option C, to choose the majority and minority leadership positions at the start of a session. Option D, to interview potential nominees for vacant federal judge positions. The correct answer is option B, to resolve differences between different versions of a bill passed by the House and the Senate. A conference committee reconciles differences between House and Senate versions of the same bill. Oversight hearings, leadership selection, and nominee interviews are different congressional functions. The goal is one final identical bill for both chambers. Question 20. Which amendment prohibits Congress from voting itself a pay raise that takes effect before the next intervention of an election of representatives? Option A, 25th Amendment. Option B, 26th Amendment. Option C, 22nd Amendment. Option D, 27th Amendment. The correct answer is option D, 27th Amendment. The 27th Amendment delays congressional pay raises until after an intervening House election. The 25th handles succession, the 26th voting age, and the 22nd presidential terms. Congressional pay timing points to the 27th. Question 21. Which case established that public figures must prove actual malice, that a statement was made with knowledge that it was false or with reckless disregard for the truth to win a libel suit? Option A, Hazelwood v. Kohlmeyer, 1988. Option B, New York Times Company v. Sullivan, 1964. Option C, Texas v. Johnson, 1989. Option D, Schenck v. United States, 1919. The correct answer is option B, New York Times Company v. Sullivan, 1964. New York Times Company v. Sullivan created the actual malice standard for public officials and later public figures in defamation suits. It protects robust debate about public affairs by making libel claims harder for powerful plaintiffs. Actual malice means knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard for truth. Question 22. What is the fundamental goal of a written constitution in a democratic society? Option A, to guarantee that the economy remains free from any inflation or recession. Option B, to establish the baseline framework, duties, and limits of the government. Option C, to prevent the public from voting on complex tax amendments. Option D, to automate the judicial selection process without human input. The correct answer is option B, To establish the baseline framework, duties, and limits of the government. A democratic constitution establishes the structure, powers, duties, and limits of government. It does not guarantee economic conditions, block all tax votes, or automate judicial selection. Its main job is to set the legal framework for self-government. Question 23. How does a constitutional republic differ fundamentally from a pure, unchecked direct democracy? Option A. A constitutional republic does not utilize popular voting to select any public officials. Option B. A constitutional republic protects minority rights through a supreme law that limits majority rule. Option C. A constitutional republic combines the positions of chief executive and chief judicial officer. Option D. A constitutional republic gives the legislative branch total immunity from constitutional review. The correct answer is option B. A constitutional republic protects minority rights through a supreme law that limits majority rule. A constitutional republic uses a higher law to limit majority power and protect individual and minority rights. A pure unchecked direct democracy could let a temporary majority override rights without constitutional restraint. Elections still matter, but the Constitution sets boundaries no majority may lawfully cross. Question 24. The use of a written constitution to establish clear boundaries for government authority is an application of which political philosophy? Option A. Absolute monarchism. Option B. Constitutionalism. Option C. Totalitarianism. Option D. Direct democracy. The correct answer is option B. Constitutionalism. Constitutionalism means government authority is created and limited by a constitution. Absolute monarchy and totalitarianism concentrate power, while direct democracy describes popular decision-making rather than legal limits. Written limits are the core of constitutional government. Question 25. What did the Supreme Court decide in Schenck v. United States, 1919, regarding speech that obstructed the military draft during wartime? Option A. Such speech is absolutely protected by the First Amendment during all conflicts. Option B. Speech can be limited if it creates a clear and present danger of bringing about substantive evils that Congress has a right to prevent. Option C. The military has the authority to court-martial civilians who print anti-war flyers. Option D. State courts must handle all speech violations without federal intervention. The correct answer is option B. Speech can be limited if it creates a clear and present danger of bringing about substantive evils that Congress has a right to prevent. Schenck held that speech may be limited when it creates a clear and present danger of serious harms Congress may prevent, especially during wartime. The case did not protect all anti-draft speech absolutely. Draft obstruction and wartime danger point to Schenck. Question 26. What landmark environmental law passed in 1970 established the framework for national ambient air quality standards to limit industrial pollution? Option A. The National Climate Act. Option B. The Clean Air Act. Option C. The Air Quality Control Act. Option D. The Environmental Protection Act. The correct answer is option B. The Clean Air Act. The Clean Air Act established the major federal framework for regulating air pollution and national air quality standards. The Clean Water Act governs water pollution, and NEPA focuses on environmental review. Air pollution points to the Clean Air Act. Question 27. In Roe v. Wade, 1973, the Supreme Court ruled that a woman's right to choose an abortion was protected by what constitutional provision? Option A. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Option B. The implied right to privacy protected by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Option C. The Privileges and Immunities Clause of Article 4. Option D. The Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. The correct answer is option B. The implied right to privacy protected by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Roe v. Wade historically grounded abortion rights in a privacy interest protected through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. The question asks for the constitutional reasoning used in Roe, not later changes in abortion doctrine. Privacy and substantive due process are the key concepts. Question 28. The concept that human beings possess inherent rights to life and liberty that cannot be justly stripped away by any government is known as what? Option A. Civil privileges. Option B. Statutory exemptions. Option C. Unalienable, or natural, rights. Option D. Executive prerogatives. The correct answer is option C. Unalienable, or natural, rights. Unalienable or natural rights are inherent rights people possess by nature, not by government permission. Civil privileges, statutory exemptions, and executive prerogatives are created by law or office. Life and liberty are the classic examples. Question 29. The mechanism of a presidential veto over legislation passed by Congress is an example of what constitutional dynamic? Option A. A state check on federal legislative powers. Option B. An executive check on the legislative branch. Option C. A judicial check on the executive branch. Option D. A legislative check on the judicial branch. The correct answer is option B. An executive check on the legislative branch. A presidential veto is an executive check on Congress because it lets the president reject legislation passed by the legislative branch. It is not a state check or a judicial check. Congress can still respond through the constitutional override process. Question 30. Which action represents a legal obligation of a United States citizen rather than a purely voluntary civic action? Option A. Organizing a neighborhood petition drive. Option B. Attending a city council meeting. Option C. Participating in federal jury duty when called. Option D. Donating to a political action committee. The correct answer is option C. Participating in federal jury duty when called. Federal jury duty is a legal obligation when a citizen is summoned. Petitioning, attending meetings, and donating to political groups are voluntary forms of civic participation. The key distinction is whether the law can require the action. Question 31. Which basic practice of American democracy allows regular citizens to influence the legislation written by their elected representatives? Option A. Filing a writ of habeas corpus. Option B. Lobbying, petitioning, and contacting elected officials. Option C. Refusing to pay local property taxes. Option D. Submitting amicus curiae briefs directly to local police departments. The correct answer is option B. Lobbying, petitioning, and contacting elected officials. Lobbying, petitioning, and contacting representatives let citizens shape legislation without holding office. Habeas corpus challenges detention, tax refusal is unlawful, and amicus briefs are legal filings rather than ordinary contact with lawmakers. The First Amendment protects petitioning government. Question 32. Which amendment to the Constitution reserves all powers not explicitly delegated to the federal government to the states or to the people? Option A. First Amendment. Option B. Fifth Amendment. Option C. Ninth Amendment. Option D. 10th Amendment. The correct answer is option D. 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment reserves powers not delegated to the federal government to the states or the people. The First, Fifth, and Ninth Amendments protect different liberties or enumerated rights. The 10th Amendment is the main textual anchor for reserved powers. Question 33. What happens if a presidential candidate fails to secure a majority of 270 electoral votes in the Electoral College? Option A. The election is voided and a new nationwide popular vote is held. Option B. The House of Representatives chooses the president, with each state casting one vote. Option C. The sitting Supreme Court selects the winner by a secret ballot. Option D. The candidate with the most total popular votes automatically wins. The correct answer is option B. The House of Representatives chooses the president, with each state casting one vote. If no presidential candidate receives an electoral college majority, the House chooses the president with each state delegation casting one vote. The winner is not automatically the popular vote leader, and the Supreme Court does not select the president. This is the contingent election process. Question 34. Which document list of structural complaints against King George III included quartering large bodies of armed troops among us and cutting off our trade with all parts of the world? Option A. The Mayflower Compact. Option B. The Articles of Confederation. Option C. The Declaration of Independence. Option D. The Northwest Ordinance. The correct answer is option C. The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence lists grievances against King George III, including quartering troops and restricting trade. The Mayflower Compact created a colonial covenant, the Articles organized the first national government, and the Northwest Ordinance governed territories. Complaints against the king point to the Declaration. Question 35. How can the legislative branch check the power of the judicial branch under the U.S. Constitution? Option A. By altering the size of the Supreme Court and confirming or rejecting judicial nominees. Option B. By issuing an executive order that pardons individuals convicted by federal courts. Option C. By removing a judge from the bench through a unilateral decree from the Speaker of the House. Option D. By rewriting a court ruling to reverse a judicial decision directly. The correct answer is option A. By altering the size of the Supreme Court and confirming or rejecting judicial nominees. Congress can check the judiciary by setting the size and structure of lower federal courts, confirming or rejecting nominees, and using impeachment for misconduct. Pardons are executive, and Congress cannot simply rewrite a court ruling as if it were a judgment. Legislative checks operate through appointments, structure, jurisdiction, and removal. Question 36. The full faith and credit clause in Article 4 of the Constitution requires states to do what? Option A. Honor the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of other states. Option B. Maintain identical tax rates on all commercial corporate assets. Option C, allow out-of-state residents to vote in local gubernatorial elections. Option D, accept the paper currency printed by neighboring state treasuries. The correct answer is option A, honor the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of other states. Full faith and credit requires states to honor other states' public acts, records, and judicial proceedings. It does not force identical taxes, out-of-state voting rights, or state-issued currencies. The clause helps legal judgments and records travel across state lines. Question 37. What type of democracy exists when citizens elect individuals to make public policy decisions on their behalf? Option A, direct democracy. Option B, representative democracy, republic. Option C, participatory democracy. Option D, autocratic democracy. The correct answer is option B, representative democracy, republic. Representative democracy, or a republic, uses elected officials to make policy on behalf of citizens. Direct democracy has citizens vote on laws themselves, and autocracy gives power to a ruler rather than the people. The key clue is electing decision-makers. Question 38. What does the Supremacy Clause located in Article 6 of the United States Constitution explicitly establish? Option A, state constitutions take precedence over federal statutes during local emergencies. Option B, the U.S. Constitution, federal laws, and treaties constitute the supreme law of the land. Option C, the President has supreme authority over all legislative budget allocations. Option D, the House of Representatives has the ultimate power to interpret constitutional amendments. The correct answer is option B, the U.S. Constitution, federal laws, and treaties constitute the supreme law of the land. The Supremacy Clause makes the Constitution, federal laws, and treaties the supreme law of the land. State constitutions cannot override valid federal law, and the clause does not give supremacy to the President or the House. It is the constitutional basis for federal law prevailing over conflicting state law. Question 39. Which position holds the highest institutional authority and power within the United States House of Representatives? Option A, the Majority Leader. Option B, the Speaker of the House. Option C, the Dean of the House. Option D, the Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. The correct answer is option B, the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House holds the highest institutional authority in the House, presiding over the chamber and controlling much of its agenda. Majority leaders and committee chairs are powerful but subordinate to the Speaker's institutional role. The Speaker is also high in presidential succession. Question 40. In Hazelwood School District v. Kohlmeyer, 1988, the Supreme Court ruled that public school administrators can censor student-run school newspapers under what condition? Option A, only if the newspaper articles contain explicit state-level criminal secrets. Option B, if the censorship is reasonably related to legitimate pedagogical concerns. Option C, only if the students are compensated with academic course credit. Option D, if the school board votes unanimously to approve the censorship action. The correct answer is option B, if the censorship is reasonably related to legitimate pedagogical concerns. Hazelwood allows public school officials to regulate school-sponsored student newspapers when the action is reasonably related to legitimate educational concerns. Tinker protects independent student expression more strongly, but Hazelwood deals with school-sponsored speech. The clue is a student-run school newspaper under school supervision. Question 41. Which of the following is an example of an expressed, or enumerated, power granted specifically to Congress in Article I, Section 8? Option A, the power to establish public school curricula. Option B, the power to coin money and regulate its value. Option C, the power to grant marriage licenses. Option D, the power to issue local driving permits. The correct answer is option B, the power to coin money and regulate its value. Coining money and regulating its value is an enumerated congressional power in Article I, Section 8. Schools, marriage licenses, and driver permits are generally state or local matters. Enumerated powers are powers expressly written into the Constitution. Question 42. Which historic executive order issued by President Harry Truman in 1948 desegregated the United States Armed Forces? Option A, Executive Order 8802. Option B, Executive Order 9066. Option C, Executive Order 9981. Option D, Executive Order 10730. The correct answer is option C, Executive Order 9981. Executive Order 9981, issued by President Harry Truman, desegregated the U.S. Armed Forces. It is not a statute or court case. Truman plus military desegregation points to EO 9981. Question 43. Which piece of legislation passed in 1973 protects threatened and endangered plant and animal species and their critical habitats from commercial destruction? Option A, the National Park Service Act. Option B, the Endangered Species Act. Option C, the Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act. Option D, the Wilderness Preservation Act. The correct answer is option B, the Endangered Species Act. The Endangered Species Act protects threatened and endangered species and their critical habitats. NEPA requires environmental review, the Clean Water Act regulates water pollution, and CERCLA cleans hazardous waste sites. Species protection points to the ESA. Question 44. What historic document served as the dynamic proclamation of the 13 colonies' break from British rule, emphasizing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Option A, the Articles of Confederation. Option B, the Declaration of Independence. Option C, the Treaty of Ghent. Option D, the Proclamation of 1763. The correct answer is option B, the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence proclaimed the colony separation from Britain and grounded that break in natural rights such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Articles created a government after independence, and the Treaty of Ghent ended the War of 1812. The Proclamation of Separation is the Declaration. Question 45. Which foundational principle emphasizes that all individuals are born with inherent dignity and are entitled to equal protection under the law, regardless of their social status? Option A, elite theory of democracy. Option B, equality under the law. Option C, pluralism. Option D, divine right of kings. The correct answer is option B, equality under the law. Equality under the law means every person has inherent dignity and is entitled to the same legal protection regardless of status. Elite theory, pluralism, and divine right describe power arrangements, not equal legal treatment. This principle supports the broader democratic value of equal citizenship. Question 46. Which principle prevents the federal government from establishing an official national religion that all citizens must follow? Option A, the Free Exercise Clause. Option B, the Establishment Clause. Option C, the Supremacy Clause. Option D, the Full Faith and Credit Clause. The correct answer is option B, the Establishment Clause. The Establishment Clause bars government from creating or endorsing an official national religion. The Free Exercise Clause protects religious practice, while the Supremacy and Full Faith and Credit Clauses address federal law and state records. Establishment is the key term for government-sponsored religion. Question 47. Which landmark case placed a clear limit on the scope of presidential executive privilege, ordering the release of audio tapes during a criminal investigation? Option A, United States v. Nixon, 1974. Option B, Clinton v. Jones, 1997. Option C, Bush v. Gore, 2000. Option D, Marbury v. Madison, 1803. The correct answer is option A, United States v. Nixon, 1974. United States v. Nixon limited executive privilege and required the president to comply with a criminal subpoena for Watergate tapes. Clinton v. Jones involved civil litigation, and Bush v. Gore involved election recounts. Executive privilege versus criminal evidence points to Nixon. Question 48. Which term describes the legal status of an individual who possesses all the rights, privileges, and duties inherent to a sovereign nation-state? Option A, alien. Option B, expatriate. Option C, citizen. Option D, refugee. The correct answer is option C, citizen. A citizen is a full member of a nation-state with legal rights, privileges, and duties. An alien, expatriate, or refugee may have important protections but does not describe full membership in the political community. Citizenship connects legal status with participation and obligation. Question 49. How did the 17th Amendment alter the structure of the United States Senate? Option A. It established that senators would be elected directly by the people of each state rather than by state legislatures. Option B. It limited senators to serving a maximum of 2 consecutive terms in office. Option C. It based Senate representation on state population rather than equal apportionment. Option D. It allowed the president to fill all sudden Senate vacancies without state input. The correct answer is option A. It established that senators would be elected directly by the people of each state rather than by state legislatures. The 17th Amendment created direct popular election of U.S. senators. It did not impose term limits, change equal Senate representation, or give the president control over vacancies. Before this amendment, state legislatures selected senators. Question 50. Under the concept of American federalism, which of the following is a power shared simultaneously by both the federal and state governments? Option A, coining currency and regulating its value. Option B. Establishing post offices and federal roads. Option C. Levying and collecting taxes from citizens. Option D. Negotiating foreign treaties with sovereign nations. The correct answer is option C. Levying and collecting taxes from citizens. Taxation is a concurrent power because both federal and state governments may levy taxes. Coining money, establishing post offices, and making treaties are national powers rather than shared state-federal powers. Concurrent powers show how federalism permits overlapping authority. Question 51. What is the purpose of the federal civil service system established by the Pendleton Act of 1883? Option A. To ensure all federal workers are hired based on professional merit rather than political patronage. Option B. To require all federal workers to enlist in the military reserves. Option C. To automate the drafting of environmental regulations using economic models. Option D. To allow the president to fire all federal workers upon taking office. The correct answer is option A. To ensure all federal workers are hired based on professional merit rather than political patronage. The Pendleton Act created a merit-based civil service to reduce patronage and the spoils system. It did not require military reserve service or allow presidents to replace all workers at will. Professional merit hiring is the key reform. Question 52. What type of power is the federal government's ability to acquire new geographic territories, which is not explicitly stated but stems from national sovereignty? Option A. Enumerated power. Option B. Reserved power. Option C. Inherent power. Option D. Concurrent power. The correct answer is option C. Inherent power. Acquiring territory is an inherent power tied to national sovereignty, even though it is not expressly listed in the Constitution. Enumerated powers are written, reserved powers belong to states, and concurrent powers are shared. The Louisiana Purchase is the classic example of this idea. Question 53. Which article contains the framework for relations among the states and the process for admitting new states to the Union? Option A. Article 3. Option B. Article 4. Option C. Article V. Option D. Article 6. The correct answer is option B. Article 4. Article 4 governs interstate relations, full faith and credit, privileges and immunities, and admission of new states. Article 3 concerns courts, Article V amendments, and Article 6 supremacy and oaths. State-to-state and new state questions point to Article 4. Question 54. Which clause allows individuals to move freely between states without having their basic civil rights stripped away by local laws? Option A. The Privileges and Immunities Clause of Article 4. Option B. The Commerce Clause of Article I. Option C. The Necessary and Proper Clause of Article I. Option D. The Presentment Clause of Article 2. The correct answer is option A. The Privileges and Immunities Clause of Article 4. The Article 4 Privileges and Immunities Clause protects citizens traveling or moving among states from discrimination in basic civil rights. The Commerce Clause regulates interstate commerce, and the Necessary and Proper and Presentment Clauses address federal lawmaking. Interstate citizenship rights are the key clue. Question 55. The division of Congress into two separate chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate, is known as what? Option A. Unicameralism. Option B. Federalism. Option C. Bicameralism. Option D. Separation of powers. The correct answer is option C. Bicameralism. Bicameralism means a legislature has two chambers, such as the House and Senate. Unicameralism has one chamber. Federalism divides national and state power, and separation of powers divides branches. The word itself means two-house structure. Question 56. What is the constitutional role of the Vice President of the United States within the legislative branch? Option A. Serving as the permanent Speaker of the House of Representatives. Option B. Serving as the President of the Senate, with the power to cast a vote only to break a tie. Option C. Writing the initial drafts of all federal revenue and tax bills. Option D. Directing the scheduling of all legislative floor debates in the Senate. The correct answer is option B. Serving as the President of the Senate, with the power to cast a vote only to break a tie. The Vice President is President of the Senate and normally votes only to break a tie. The Speaker leads the House, and Senate floor scheduling is handled by Senate leadership. The role gives the Vice President a limited legislative function. Question 57. What occurs when a bill is pigeonholed by a congressional committee chairperson? Option A. It is immediately brought to the floor for an emergency vote. Option B. It is set aside and ignored, effectively killing the bill within the committee. Option C. It is sent directly to the President for an advisory signature. Option D. It is amended to include funds for state educational initiatives. The correct answer is option B. It is set aside and ignored, effectively killing the bill within the committee. Pigeonholing occurs when a committee chair sets a bill aside and prevents it from advancing, effectively killing it. It is not emergency floor action, presidential referral, or an education funding amendment. Committees can shape legislation by refusing to act. Question 58. Which committee in the House of Representatives is responsible for determining the specific rules, time limits, and amendment conditions for debating a bill on the House floor? Option A. The Appropriations Committee. Option B. The Ways and Means Committee. Option C. The Rules Committee. Option D. The Judiciary Committee. The correct answer is option C. The Rules Committee. The House Rules Committee sets the terms for floor debate, including time limits and amendment rules. Appropriations handles spending, Ways and Means handles taxes, and Judiciary handles legal and judicial matters. Control over debate rules points to the Rules Committee. Question 59. Which political philosopher's concept of natural rights, specifically life, liberty, and property, heavily influenced the writing of the Declaration of Independence? Option A. Thomas Hobbes. Option B. John Locke. Option C. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Option D. Baron de Montesquieu. The correct answer is option B. John Locke. John Locke's theory of natural rights taught that people possess life, liberty, and property before government exists. Hobbes emphasized strong sovereign control, Rousseau stressed the general will, and Montesquieu is tied to separation of powers rather than the Declaration's rights language. For FCLE, connect Locke with natural rights and the Declaration's claim that rights are unalienable. Question 60. What major environmental law passed in 1980 created a federal superfund to clean up uncontrolled hazardous waste sites across the country? Option A. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. Option B. The Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, CERCLA. Option C. The Toxic Substances Control Act. Option D. The Solid Waste Disposal Act. The correct answer is option B. The Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, CERCLA. CERCLA, commonly called Superfund, created a federal program to clean up hazardous waste sites and assign cleanup liability. NEPA reviews federal actions, while the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts regulate pollution media. Hazardous waste cleanup points to Superfund. Question 61. What historical Roman Republic concept heavily influenced the American founders' emphasis on civic virtue and the public good? Option A. Direct participation in tribal assemblies. Option B. Republicanism and citizen representation. Option C. The absolute judicial authority of the emperor. Option D. The use of military tribunals for all civil suits. The correct answer is option B. Republicanism and citizen representation. Republicanism in the Roman tradition emphasized elected representation, civic virtue, and service to the public good. Tribal assemblies, emperors, and military tribunals do not capture the founders' model of representative self-government. Roman republican ideas helped shape the American preference for a republic over monarchy. Question 62. According to Federalist No. 51, what is essential to keeping the branches of government separate and preventing an abuse of power? Option A. Ensuring that all branches share an identical pool of tax revenue. Option B. Giving each branch the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist encroachments by the others. Option C. Combining the legislative and executive offices into a single governing body. Option D. Requiring all federal officials to pass a standard civic virtue exam every 2 years. The correct answer is option B. Giving each branch the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist encroachments by the others. Federalist No. 51 teaches that each branch needs constitutional means and motives to resist the others. Shared revenue, merged offices, or civic exams would not create effective structural checks. The famous idea is ambition counteracting ambition. Question 63. Which amendment ensures that any expansion of federal authority must be tied to an explicit or implied power, protecting local state control? Option A. Second Amendment. Option B. Fifth Amendment. Option C. 10th Amendment. Option D. 14th Amendment. The correct answer is option C. 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment reinforces that federal authority must come from an expressed or implied constitutional power, leaving remaining powers to states or the people. The Second and Fifth Amendments protect specific rights, while the 14th limits states through citizenship, due process, and equal protection. Local control and reserved powers point to the 10th. Question 64. Which amendment expanded suffrage by explicitly prohibiting the denial of the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude? Option A. 13th Amendment. Option B. 14th Amendment. Option C. 15th Amendment. Option D. 19th Amendment. The correct answer is option C. 15th Amendment. The 15th Amendment prohibits denying the vote because of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The 13th abolished slavery, the 14th guarantees citizenship and equal protection, and the 19th protects voting regardless of sex. Race-based voting discrimination points to the 15th. Question 65. In Reynolds v. United States, 1879, the Supreme Court ruled that religious duty was not a valid legal defense to a criminal charge of polygamy, setting what precedent? Option A. Religious practices are completely immune from federal law. Option B. The Free Exercise Clause protects religious beliefs, but not religious actions that violate substantive criminal laws. Option C. The federal government cannot define marriage regulations in territories. Option D. State marriage certificates are non-binding under maritime rule. The correct answer is option B. The Free Exercise Clause protects religious beliefs, but not religious actions that violate substantive criminal laws. Reynolds v. United States distinguished religious belief from religious conduct, holding that free exercise does not protect criminal acts such as polygamy. The case does not allow every religiously motivated action to override neutral criminal law. Belief-action distinction is the Reynolds Q. Question 66. Which House of Congress has the sole constitutional authority to initiate the impeachment process against a federal official? Option A. The Senate. Option B. The House of Representatives. Option C. The Supreme Court. Option D. The Government Accountability Office. The correct answer is option B. The House of Representatives. The House of Representatives has the sole power to impeach, meaning it brings formal charges against a federal official. The Senate conducts the trial, and courts do not initiate impeachment. Think of impeachment as indictment in the House and trial in the Senate. Question 67. What dynamic occurs when the federal government passes a law that completely overrides and replaces conflicting state laws on the same topic? Option A. Ratification. Option B. Preemption. Option C. Devolution. Option D. Gerrymandering. The correct answer is option B. Preemption. Preemption occurs when valid federal law overrides conflicting state law on the same subject. Ratification approves a constitutional change, devolution shifts power downward, and gerrymandering manipulates districts. Supremacy makes preemption possible. Question 68. How does the judicial branch check the power of the executive branch? Option A. By refusing to confirm presidential cabinet appointments. Option B. By declaring executive orders or actions unconstitutional through judicial review. Option C. By voting to impeach the president during times of administrative misconduct. Option D. By adjusting the annual operating budget allocated to the White House. The correct answer is option B. By declaring executive orders or actions unconstitutional through judicial review. Courts check the executive by declaring executive actions or orders unconstitutional in actual cases. The Senate confirms appointments, the House impeaches, and Congress controls budgets. Judicial review is the judiciary's core check. Question 69. Which document first advanced the radical idea that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed? Option A. The Articles of Confederation. Option B. The Declaration of Independence. Option C. The Treaty of Paris. Option D. The Federalist Papers. The correct answer is option B. The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence states that governments derive just powers from the consent of the governed. The Articles created the first national government, the Treaty of Paris ended the war, and the Federalist Papers defended the later Constitution. Consent is the Declaration's key political theory. Question 70. What was the constitutional significance of the Northwest Ordinance of 1787? Option A. It established the initial national banking system for the colonies. Option B. It set a precedent for the orderly admission of new states to the Union and banned slavery in the Northwest Territory. Option C. It authorized the executive branch to buy geographic lands from European powers. Option D. It dissolved the state assemblies of states that refused to pay Continental War debts. The correct answer is option B. It set a precedent for the orderly admission of new states to the Union and banned slavery in the Northwest Territory. The Northwest Ordinance set rules for organizing Western territories, admitting new states, and banning slavery in the Northwest Territory. It did not create a bank, authorize later land purchases, or dissolve state assemblies. It showed how the nation would expand on equal state principles. Question 71. What major compromise at the 1787 Constitutional Convention resolved the dispute over legislative representation by creating a bicameral Congress with one house based on population and the other based on equal representation? Option A. The Three-Fifths Compromise. Option B. The Commerce Compromise. Option C. The Great Connecticut Compromise. Option D. The Electoral College Compromise. The correct answer is option C. The Great Connecticut Compromise. The Great, or Connecticut, Compromise created a bicameral Congress with proportional representation in the House and equal state representation in the Senate. The 3/5 compromise addressed enslaved persons for representation and taxation, not the two-house structure. Representation disputes point to the Great Compromise. Question 72. What was the primary purpose of the landmark Voting Rights Act of 1965? Option A. To lower the national voting age to 18 across all municipal contests. Option B. To eliminate discriminatory voting barriers, such as literacy tests, used against racial minorities. Option C. To establish mandatory online voter registration systems for all states. Option D. To replace the Electoral College with a national popular vote system. The correct answer is option B. To eliminate discriminatory voting barriers, such as literacy tests, used against racial minorities. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 targeted discriminatory voting practices such as literacy tests used to suppress minority voters. It did not lower the voting age, create online registration, or abolish the Electoral College. Voting barriers and federal enforcement point to the VRA. Question 73. Which article of the Constitution details the process required for the original ratification of the document by the states? Option A, Article 4. Option B, Article V. Option C, Article 6. Option D, Article 7. The correct answer is option D, Article 7. Article 7 set the process for original ratification of the Constitution by the states. Article V concerns amendments, Article 6 includes supremacy and oaths, and Article 4 concerns interstate relations. Ratification of the original document points to Article 7. Question 74. Title IX of the Education Amendments Act of 1972 explicitly prohibits discrimination based on what characteristic in federally funded education programs? Option A, age. Option B, socioeconomic status. Option C, sex. Option D, religious affiliation. The correct answer is option C, sex. Title IX prohibits sex discrimination in federally funded education programs and activities. It is not primarily about age, income, or religion. Education access and sex discrimination point to Title IX. Question 75. Which clause in Article I gives Congress the authority to regulate commercial business activities that cross over state lines? Option A. The Taxing and Spending Clause. Option B. The Commerce Clause. Option C. The Origination Clause. Option D. The General Welfare Clause. The correct answer is option B. The Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause gives Congress power to regulate commerce among the states. Taxing and spending concerns revenue and expenditures, while origination and general welfare are different congressional concepts. Interstate business activity is the Commerce Clause signal. Question 76. Under the U.S. Constitution, what body has the explicit power to try all cases of impeachment involving federal officials? Option A. The U.S. House of Representatives. Option B. The U.S. Senate. Option C. The U.S. Supreme Court. Option D. The Department of Justice. The correct answer is option B. The U.S. Senate. The Senate tries impeachments and decides whether to convict and remove federal officials. The House brings impeachment charges, while courts and the Justice Department do not conduct impeachment trials. Impeachment is split between the two chambers. Question 77. What type of government system allocates power evenly between central and regional authorities so that neither can completely eliminate the other? Option A. Unitary system. Option B. Federal system. Option C. Confederal system. Option D. Autocratic system. The correct answer is option B. Federal system. A federal system divides power between central and regional governments so both have protected authority. A unitary system centralizes power, a confederal system weakens the center, and autocracy centers power in a ruler. Federalism is the middle path between unitary and confederal systems. Question 78. What did the Supreme Court decide regarding federal campaign finance laws in the landmark case Citizens United v. Federal Election Commission, 2010? Option A. Corporations and unions have a First Amendment right to spend unlimited independent amounts of money on political communications. Option B. Political action committees are completely banned from donating money to congressional candidates. Option C. Foreign corporations are granted identical political spending rights as domestic citizens. Option D. All political advertisements must be funded exclusively by the federal government. The correct answer is option A. Corporations and unions have a First Amendment right to spend unlimited independent amounts of money on political communications. Citizens United held that corporations and unions may spend unlimited independent funds on political communications under the First Amendment. It did not ban political action committees or give foreign corporations the same campaign rights. The key word is independent expenditures. Question 79. What landmark piece of legislation established the contemporary framework for federal environmental protections, requiring environmental impact statements for major projects? Option A, the Clean Air Act of 1970. Option B, the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, of 1969. Option C, the Endangered Species Act of 1973. Option D, the Comprehensive Environmental Response Act. The correct answer is option B, the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, of 1969. NEPA established broad federal environmental review and requires environmental impact statements for major federal actions. The Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act, and CERCLA address different environmental problems. Environmental impact statements are the NEPA clue. Question 80. The 24th Amendment protected the voting rights of low-income citizens by outlawing what practice in federal elections? Option A, literacy tests. Option B, grandfather clauses. Option C, poll taxes. Option D, property ownership requirements. The correct answer is option C, poll taxes. The 24th Amendment banned poll taxes in federal elections. Literacy tests and grandfather clauses were other discriminatory devices, and property requirements are a separate historical voting barrier. The amendment targeted the practice of charging citizens to vote. Question 81. Which body within classic Greek democracy served as the inspiration for modern legislative assemblies? Option A, the Spartan Council of Elders. Option B, the Athenian Assembly, Ecclesia. Option C, the Roman Tribunate. Option D, the Delphic Oracle. The correct answer is option B, the Athenian Assembly, Ecclesia. The Athenian Assembly, or Ecclesia, was a direct citizen body that inspired later thinking about legislative assemblies. Sparta, Rome, and Delphi represent different institutions and traditions. Athens is the Greek model for citizens debating and voting in assembly. Question 82. Which branch of government has the primary constitutional responsibility to create, debate, and pass statutory laws for the nation? Option A, executive branch. Option B, legislative branch. Option C, judicial branch. Option D, administrative branch. The correct answer is option B, legislative branch. The legislative branch, Congress, creates, debates, and passes federal statutes. The executive enforces laws, the judiciary interprets them, and administrative agencies implement delegated programs. Lawmaking is the legislature's core constitutional function. Question 83. What is the term length for an individual who serves on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System? Option A, 4 years. Option B, 6 years. Option C, 10 years. Option D, 14 years. The correct answer is option D, 14 years. Members of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors serve 14-year terms. The long term is designed to insulate monetary policy from short-term political pressure. 4, 6, and 10 years are not the statutory board term. Question 84. Which of the following is an example of an informal way citizens can participate in the democratic process? Option A, serving as a juror on a criminal trial. Option B, discussing political issues and volunteering for a local community organization. Option C, paying state-mandated vehicle registration fees. Option D, completing the federal decennial census form. The correct answer is option B, discussing political issues and volunteering for a local community organization. Discussing issues and volunteering are informal participation because citizens engage politically or civically without a formal legal role. Jury service, vehicle registration, and the census are official or legally required processes. Informal participation still strengthens democratic culture. Question 85. Which constitutional provision requires that all bills designed to raise public revenue must originate in a specific House of Congress? Option A, the origination clause requires them to start in the Senate. Option B, the origination clause requires them to start in the House of Representatives. Option C, the presentment clause requires them to start in the executive office. Option D, the supremacy clause requires them to start in state legislatures. The correct answer is option B, the origination clause requires them to start in the House of Representatives. The origination clause requires revenue bills to begin in the House of Representatives. It does not require revenue bills to start in the Senate, executive office, or state legislatures. The rule reflects the House's closer connection to the people through 2-year terms. Question 86. In Pierce v. Society of Sisters, 1925, the Supreme Court struck down a state law requiring all children to attend public schools, affirming what right? Option A, the state's power to standardize historical education. Option B, the constitutional right of parents to send their children to private or parochial schools. Option C, the absolute separation of church and educational policy. Option D, the commercial immunity of nonprofit entities. The correct answer is option B, the constitutional right of parents to send their children to private or parochial schools. Pierce v. Society of Sisters affirmed parents' liberty to choose private or parochial education rather than being forced into public schools only. Meyer protected a related parental education right involving foreign language instruction. Mandatory public school-only laws point to Pierce. Question 87. The constitutional protection against double jeopardy means what? Option A. A person cannot be tried twice for the exact same crime after being acquitted. Option B. A defendant cannot be sued in civil court if they were found guilty in criminal court. Option C. A law cannot carry both a financial fine and a period of physical imprisonment. Option D. An individual cannot be investigated by two different federal agencies at the same time. The correct answer is option A. A person cannot be tried twice for the exact same crime after being acquitted. Double jeopardy prevents a person from being tried again for the same offense after acquittal or conviction. Civil suits, combined punishments, and multiple agency investigations are separate issues. The protection appears in the Fifth Amendment. Question 88. What did the Supreme Court rule in United States v. Lopez, 1995, regarding the scope of congressional power? Option A. Congress has absolute authority to regulate any action that involves firearms. Option B. The Gun-Free School Zones Act exceeded Congress's authority under the Commerce Clause because carrying a gun in a school zone is not an economic activity. Option C. State laws banning firearms in public parks violate the Supremacy Clause. Option D. The federal government can use highway funds to force states to change local penal codes. The correct answer is option B. The Gun-Free School Zones Act exceeded Congress's authority under the Commerce Clause because carrying a gun in a school zone is not an economic activity. United States v. Lopez limited Congress's Commerce Clause power by holding that possessing a gun in a school zone was not economic activity sufficiently tied to interstate commerce. The case rejected an unlimited view of federal commerce power. It is a key modern example of limits on congressional authority. Question 89. In McCulloch v. Maryland, 1819, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the national bank and solidified which major constitutional principle? Option A. Individual states have the right to tax federal entities. Option B. Congress possesses implied powers under the Necessary and Proper Clause, and federal law is supreme over state law. Option C. The Bill of Rights applies uniformly to state court systems. Option D. The executive branch has absolute authority over interstate trade. The correct answer is option B. Congress possesses implied powers under the Necessary and Proper Clause, and federal law is supreme over state law. McCulloch v. Maryland upheld the national bank through implied powers and confirmed that states cannot tax valid federal institutions. The case relies on the Necessary and Proper Clause and the Supremacy Clause. It rejects the idea that states can control or destroy federal operations. Question 90. Which characteristic of ancient Athenian governance is most closely mirrored by modern American democratic practices like state-level referendums? Option A. Representative republicanism. Option B. Direct democracy. Option C. Oligarchical council rule. Option D. Hereditary monarchical rule. The correct answer is option B. Direct democracy. Direct democracy occurs when citizens vote directly on policy questions, as with many referendums and initiatives. Representative republicanism involves elected officials making decisions, while oligarchy and monarchy place power in a few hands or a hereditary ruler. Ancient Athens is the classic model for direct citizen decision-making. Question 91. What type of jurisdiction does the U.S. Supreme Court exercise when it reviews a decision made by a lower federal appeals court or a state Supreme Court? Option A. Original jurisdiction. Option B. Appellate jurisdiction. Option C. Interstate jurisdiction. Option D. Summary jurisdiction. The correct answer is option B. Appellate jurisdiction. Appellate jurisdiction is the power to review lower court decisions for legal error. Original jurisdiction begins a case, while interstate and summary jurisdiction do not describe Supreme Court review of appeals. Most Supreme Court work is appellate. Question 92. In McDonald v. Chicago, 2010, the Supreme Court applied the Second Amendment's protections to state and local governments through which legal mechanism? Option A. The Commerce Clause. Option B. The doctrine of selective incorporation via the 14th Amendment. Option C. The Presentment Clause of Article 2. Option D. The Full Faith and Credit Clause. The correct answer is option B. The doctrine of selective incorporation via the 14th Amendment. McDonald v. Chicago incorporated the Second Amendment against state and local governments through the 14th Amendment. Heller recognized the individual right against the Federal District of Columbia, while McDonald extended it to the states. Incorporation is the McDonald clue. Question 93. What is the purpose of the President's annual State of the Union address as required by the Constitution? Option A. To announce the direct suspension of federal income taxes for the year. Option B. To provide information to Congress on the condition of the nation and recommend necessary legislation. Option C. To officially swear in new members of the United States Supreme Court. Option D. To dissolve Congress and call for immediate special elections. The correct answer is option B. To provide information to Congress on the condition of the nation and recommend necessary legislation. The State of the Union informs Congress about national conditions and recommends legislative priorities. It is not a tax suspension, judicial swearing-in ceremony, or power to dissolve Congress. The address links executive leadership with congressional lawmaking. Question 94. What landmark environmental legislation passed in 1972 regulated the discharge of pollutants into the nation's surface waters and funded sewage treatment plants? Option A. The Safe Drinking Water Act. Option B. The Clean Water Act. Option C. The Toxic Substances Control Act. Option D. The Resource Conservation Act. The correct answer is option B. The Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act regulates discharges of pollutants into navigable waters and supports sewage treatment improvements. The Clean Air Act addresses air pollution, and CERCLA deals with hazardous waste cleanup. Surface water pollution points to the Clean Water Act. Question 95. What was the legal outcome of the infamous Dred Scott v. Sandford, 1857, Supreme Court decision? Option A. It declared that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, were not citizens and that Congress could not ban slavery in U.S. territories. Option B. It established the separate but equal doctrine for public transportation systems. Option C. It ruled that state-level segregation laws were a direct violation of the Privileges Clause. Option D. It forced northern states to pay financial restitution for runaway slaves. The correct answer is option A. It declared that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, were not citizens and that Congress could not ban slavery in U.S. territories. Dred Scott v. Sandford held that African Americans were not citizens and that Congress lacked power to ban slavery in the territories. Plessy created separate but equal, and later civil rights cases rejected segregation. The decision is infamous because it protected slavery and denied citizenship. Question 96. What did the Three-Fifths Compromise determine during the drafting of the United States Constitution? Option A. The percentage of votes required in the Senate to pass an international trade treaty. Option B. How enslaved individuals would be counted for the purposes of taxation and congressional representation. Option C. The number of states required to ratify an amendment to the federal tax code. Option D. The proportion of federal judges that must be chosen from state courts. The correct answer is option B. How enslaved individuals would be counted for the purposes of taxation and congressional representation. The Three-Fifths Compromise counted enslaved persons as three-fifths of a person for representation and taxation. It did not set treaty votes, amendment thresholds, or judicial selection rules. The compromise was a political bargain over power in Congress. Question 97. What type of congressional committee is created for a specific, temporary purpose, such as investigating a unique national crisis or scandal? Option A. Standing Committee. Option B. Joint Committee. Option C. Select, or Special, Committee. Option D. Conference Committee. The correct answer is option C. Select, or Special, Committee. A select or special committee is created for a temporary, specific purpose such as investigating a crisis or scandal. Standing committees are permanent, joint committees include both chambers, and conference committees reconcile bills. Temporary investigation is the select committee clue. Question 98. Which body in the executive branch is comprised of the heads of the 15 executive departments, serving as the primary advisory group to the President? Option A. The Joint Chiefs of Staff. Option B. The Cabinet. Option C. The National Security Council. Option D. The Board of Governors. The correct answer is option B. The Cabinet. The Cabinet consists of the heads of the executive departments and advises the President. The Joint Chiefs advise on military matters, the National Security Council coordinates security policy, and the Board of Governors runs the Federal Reserve. Department heads together form the Cabinet. Question 99. Which document served as the immediate model for the structure of individual liberty protections found in the American Bill of Rights? Option A. The French Declaration of the Rights of Man. Option B. The English Bill of Rights of 1689. Option C. The German Weimar Constitution. Option D. The Articles of Confederation. The correct answer is option B. The English Bill of Rights of 1689. The English Bill of Rights of 1689 influenced later American protections for individual liberty and limits on government. The French Declaration came after the American founding, and the Weimar Constitution is much later. The Articles of Confederation created a government structure, not the model for the Bill of Rights. Question 100. What does the Constitution require the federal government to guarantee to every state in the Union under Article 4, Section 4? Option A. A balanced annual fiscal budget. Option B. A Republican form of government. Option C. A state-funded public university system. Option D. An equal number of military installations. The correct answer is option B. A Republican form of government. Article 4 requires the United States to guarantee every state a Republican form of government. It does not require balanced budgets, public universities, or equal military bases. This is known as the Guarantee Clause.